specialization strategy. We decided to focus on 3 pillars at Neutech Park, our digital specialization strategy. The first pillar is IoT, so collection of data. Then the second one is Open Data Hub, platform to collect data and share it in a standard way. And the last one is AI as data visualization and tool to elaborate the data and make innovative application out of it. Today, the topic is more on the development side. Simon Dalvai will present us the tool he's using by developing his games. I'm really looking forward to see your talk, Simon. Thank you for coming, and the floor is yours.
Hello everybody, thank you very much Stefano for this introduction. So today we will take a look at my developer experience with Neovim, SwayWM and split keyboard. So this is a quite special setup I'm using now since more than a year, and I think it's noteworthy to share. And first a bit about me. So I'm developing since 2016, now nearly 10 years. I can't believe it when I wrote it down. And now since nearly 2 years I'm developing games, open source games. And today we will talk about split keyboards, then SwayWM, that is the tiling window manager I'm using here, Neovim, and then of course I will show it in action, everything combined. So first, split keyboards. So split keyboards, I have also another one. This was my first one. They are, if you know ergonomical keyboards, they are a step further because they are even separated, so you can organize it however you want. So you don't only have ergonomic hand position, but also the shoulders and everything, you can put it how you want. And most of them also have just a few keys, so normal keyboards have maybe 100 keys or 60 keys, and for example, this one has, I think, 46, and this one I'm using has 34 keys. So you reduce a lot of the finger movement. For example, I also had a small pain here. I mean, it was related to going too much with the bicycle, but using the keyboard all day didn't help, and with these keyboards I was able to get the pain away. It was not really a reside or something like that, but still something I solved with this. And another cool thing is that many keyboards are open source and also open hardware. So you can, for example, both keyboards, you can find also the PCB layout on GitHub and print it on your own. Also the case, everything. And most are just hobby people. There are just a few companies who really produce split keyboards. Most of them are just people liking this kind of keyboards and producing them on their own. So also most shops you find online, there are some people with a garage with some soldering kit and sending them through the world. So it's really a community-driven project. And then you can use, maybe some of you know QMK. It's a firmware where you can program the keyboards. So these keyboards you can program on your own, how the letters are, layers and stuff like that. And then there is also ZMK if you use wireless keyboards, because there you have another firmware and need different configurations. And I personally use this VL. Here I can configure it with a GUI, because in the other one you have to write configuration files and then flash it every time. Instead with this one, I will show it now, you can really just say this is this letter by clicking a GUI, so it's much easier. And yeah, they allow to have different layers, macros. Also, this one has RGB. I didn't want it, but they send it anyway. And also combinations of keys, because if you have so few keys, you really have to get creative on how to get all the keys. And this one here I'm using is called DasPop. So this is the GitHub repository. And on the left, you can also see the layout. So I'm currently using the last one, the Colemak. There are also, normally it's QWERTY, and the Dvorak is maybe a well-known alternative keyboard. And this is a heat map on which keys you will press writing English. So as you can see, with the QWERTY, if you are touch typing and with the fingers on your home row, you actually always have to move your fingers to write or do it a lot. Instead, with the Dvorak, it's already much better. And the Dvorak is also designed that you alternate hands, I think, so that the idea of the Dvorak is that you type alternative. Instead, Colemak doesn't focus on that. It just focuses that you have your finger mostly on the home row, so that you really can write a lot of English words by staying on the home row. And I'm using it now since more than a year, and I really like it. I have to admit, I never knew how to touch type before, so it was not that I had to switch from QWERTY to Colemak. I was always typing by looking, but now I can do it. And the last one is a website I recommend if you want to get better at typing. I can also show fast. No. So this is the repository. So here, as you can see, you can find KiCad files. I don't know much about this, but you find everything you need to produce it on your own here. And this is the site. Here you can select your layout and how much fast you want to become. And this kind of focuses on the home row first. So you don't start with the whole keyboard, just with the home row, and then slowly more letters unlock. So you really focus on getting better with few letters and then building up on that instead of just using it and then you get frustrated. And I really recommend, if you want to change layout, to use this, and maybe also just 20 minutes a day, then you go back to the old layout, and so slowly you build up, because otherwise it's getting really too much frustration if you... I did it and it was a mess. I sent many wrong messages to wrong people. Okay, then back to presentation mode. So here now I will show some pictures I found online. This is maybe a quite conventional split keyboard. So here you have much more keys. You have also the numbers and tap and stuff like that. So if you want to start, you can also start with something much simpler, not with 34 keys, because can get a bit tricky. But you can find a lot of different layouts. And I started with this one just to try if I like split keyboards. But then I saw also that this button is too much on the inside, so I had to do a lot of this. I didn't like that, so I bought this one because it has less keys. I was not using all the keys, but it also has the thumb cluster much nicer and also some other stuff. And then you can find all kinds of setups. For example, here they used some camera mounting stuff to mount it under the desk. Or I'm also using, I don't know how it's called in English, Gurken. Pickles, the thing to get a tenting stuff and still that it stays firm. Or then even stuff like this, where some people attach it to the knees. I don't know. Like, ergonomical is what you find ergonomical. There is no yes or right or wrong. Whatever works for you is the right choice. And also this is quite new. I found it a few days ago. And there are also like these concave keyboards where they are like this form, and so you have less finger travel because you don't have to point your finger, but you can just move it around. And here, as you can see, also the thumb keys are on the other side. So you write like this, like a natural hand position would be. I don't know if this works. It's just really interesting. And this is the ultimate one I found. So this is, so here you can press, but also every finger movement is a key press. And so here you really just move the fingers a few millimeters and can write fast. Like this is one of the fastest keyboards that exist, I think. It's also really expensive, but you can print it on your own if you have the stuff to print it. And this is another extreme. So this has 9 keys, so you have 18 keys together. And here you have to work a lot with layers and combinations. So now I will show how that works. Okay, no. I don't know why it didn't show up in my application launcher. Okay. Yeah, I was expecting that something will not work because. Okay, now we can see. So this is the current layout I'm using on this keyboard. As you can see, all the letters. Then I have ESC space, tab, enter, backspace, and delete. And this is the Colemak layout. And then you can also define, for example, if you press it once, it's, for example, tab. But if I keep it pressed, it becomes control. So I have one key with 2 functions. Or on this side, I have layer. So LT5, this means if I keep this key pressed, I will switch to layer 5. And then layer 5, or let's start with layer 1. Like layer 1 are my numbers. So here I have the numbers on the left side and the arrows on the right side. So if I press this button here, if I keep it pressed, I will switch to that layer. And here you can do whatever you want. I mean, I prefer to keep pressed and then change the layout, but there are also ways that you press a button so the layer changes and it keeps that layer. So there are really uncountable ways to organize your keyboard. And also here, whatever works for you, then will stick. So I normally also have a symbols layer. So for programming, you can access easily all the symbols you need. Then here a special layer with mouse and music. So this keyboard can also play music. It has like a buzzer inside. I will show it later if I remember. And the function keys and volume, mute, and stuff like that. And the last one, this is for Sway, because Sway is like the styling window manager I'm using, and there you have to press some special combinations to maybe change workspace or stuff like that. And there normally you have to press the Windows button, or GUI button it's called here. And to not have the Windows button, I just created this layer to have faster access. And then, of course, you can define macros, tap dance, where you can define one tap is one key, double tap that key. If I double tap and then keep pressed, it is another key. Like you can really get crazy. So I also have here these combos to activate the function layers. So here you really can spend a lot of time to optimize your typing. Okay, back to. And this is my setup at home. So yeah, I'm using now also even a standing desk, because this ergonomic stuff keeps evolving. So if you do one thing, you do the other thing. And a few weeks ago, I bought even a standing desk. I'm also using only one monitor, because with Sway you can really switch really fast workspaces. So I don't really need a second monitor. Maybe sometimes if I would have to copy, but in the end, I'm really happy with one. And he see the Batman mask?
No, I saw Pokemon at Manu Chao.
Ah. Okay, so now to Sway. So Sway is a tiling window manager I'm using here on top of Debian. And I have to say that it's not a desktop environment. So normally, maybe you know GNOME or KDE or stuff like that that you put normally on Linux, and there you get a lot of things like the logging screen, the network manager, like they come with batteries included with all the tools you need to use a desktop. Sway instead is just a window manager. So I get these 10 workspaces. Then on the bottom, I have this bar here. I see the number of the workspace. Then on the bottom right, it's really small. I just see the layout, the volume. I mean, I defined this. You can define this in our really tiny script what you want to use here. And the idea is that they are tiled. So as you can see, if you open a new one, it always aligns to the new desktop, to the layout. So if I will open a Firefox, it will be this small. And then, of course, you can switch in all ways like this, or then also that you have tapped. I get you. Yeah. And the cool thing is here that you can really embrace the keyboard, because when I was using these keyboards, I didn't want to use the mouse or stuff like that. And I always used workspaces. Also before I used XFCE or KDE, and also there I always used this kind of setup, a little bit different. And I never cared about animations or fancy looking stuff, so this was perfect. But it has also some downsides. For example, here setting up the screen sharing was a nightmare. Now it works. So there are some things that are quite complicated. And I took a lot of information from the Arch Wiki, where you can find in general a lot of useful information for Linux. And there's also Fedora Sway, that is the Fedora distribution with Sway installed. And it's the only one that supports Sway officially. There are some minor distributions, but from the big ones, there is no one except Fedora. I'm here using Debian, so I just installed Debian like you would install it on a server, and then install Sway on top of that. But if you just want to try, you can also install it alongside GNOME or stuff like that, and then when you log in, you choose Sway instead of GNOME, or you just try Fedora Sway, so you get out-of-the-box experience how it can be, and then you can choose if you like it or not. And I also wrote a blog post about it, about my current setup. There you can find more information and more detailed stuff, because, as I said, so it's just a tiling window manager, so all the other stuff you have to install, but you're also free to choose what you want. For example, as emulator, I'm using Foot. Then File Explorer, I'm using Tunar. It's the one XFCE normally brings, and it is quite fast, and also doesn't have a lot of dependencies. Then Wofi is the application launcher. So if I want to launch application, no, here full screen doesn't work. Here. This opens, and then I search for, I don't know, Steam. Yeah. Yeah. Now it's 7 o'clock. I have to kill the color filter. I forgot. How it's called? VL Sunset. Okay. And, or for example, if I want to connect to a network, I don't have here the thing I can click to choose the Wi-Fi. You can also choose another bar. There are some other bars that really support also clicking stuff. But I like to use the command line, so I'm using an M2I. And here you can check the connection with a TUI application and then quit it again. So it's really bare bones. And then you also have to install something for notifications. For example, if you get an email, Sway doesn't say nothing. So you can also choose which one to use. Normally people use this macro I saw online. And so if I get an email, I get this notification. I can show you with this notify send. So on the top right, you see the notification I got. And if I will get an email, there will be the text. And there are, of course, a lot of more tools. I didn't want to get too much into detail, but yeah, this way really allows to be using mostly the keyboard, and it's also really small from dependencies. It doesn't have much dependencies, and also easy to configure, and you can also bring your configuration on every computer. So this is the beauty of dot files, because you can really define your setup in configuration files and then create this desktop environment as code. And now I'm using mostly just one computer, but when I was still working, I had two computers, and with syncing, I was able to synchronize always the files. So if I was at home and tweaked my Sway file at work, when I turned it up, it synchronized immediately, and I had the same setup already at work. So for example, on GNOME or stuff like that, you maybe tweak it a little bit, and then they change stuff, or when you reinstall, it's really difficult to bring your configuration. Instead here, it is how you configure stuff, so there is no other way. And also most tools, as I said before, support dot files, so you have one, and you can also find my collection on Codeberg. And yes, that's it. And now to the editor I'm using. So of course, this was the reason I was using so much the keyboard and wanting also to use the split keyboards, because I was using Visual Studio Code for a long time, then Visual Studio Codium, or VS Codium, the open source fork. But I wanted to use something really real open source, and I always wanted to learn Vim. So I did it. I used it for every day for every file, and at the beginning it is really difficult, but now I'm quite happy with the setup. And it also, I mean, it's cool to see, for example, VI was, I don't know when it was released, 1980, and Vim was released 1992, and it's still used today by people and updated and stuff like that. And Neovim I'm using now is a modern fork of Vim. So they introduced Lua and stuff like that, so it's a little bit easier to configure. And the cool thing, it's really fast, and it runs also everywhere. So I can also run it on my phone with Thermux. If you saw the talk from Davide, he once showed Thermux, it's called, yeah. On Android, there you can also run your Neovim with the full configuration, and I just tried it. I never really use it, but it runs. And the idea of these editors is that they are modal editors. So it is really different here how you edit stuff, because normally you open it, you're already writing. If you type a letter, you write what you want. You can select with the mouse. But on modal editors, you have different modes, and that define how your actions are, the effect your actions have. And other well-known modal editors are Emacs and Helix. I never used it. It's, I think, quite new. It's not so old. And in Vim, you also use the motions. So that is the crucial part, and also the first thing I think somebody should learn, because of course you still can use the mouse, but the idea is to really use the keyboard. And then you have a lot of different ways to move around, also fast, and but that is the core thing you have to learn. And a lot of editors also support Vim motions, so you can maybe check if your current editor does it, or you can maybe install plugins so that you get used just to the motions. Then once you are used to them, you can then really switch to Neovim or stuff like that. And for example, you move around with H, J, K, L to up, down, left, right. Then with GG you go, and G you go to the top of the file or to the bottom. With 0 you go to the start of the line. With dollar to the end of the line. Then with word you can jump words. And with F you can find the next character. So for example, yeah, I will show it later anyways. And T you go to that character, but the character before. So there are a lot of ways to move around. And in Vim you also use mostly buffers. So buffers is once you open a file, it's in the memory and in a buffer, and then if you open another file, it is in another buffer, but you don't see it. I mean, in Vim you always just see the current file, the current buffer you're editing, and then you can change buffer and stuff like that, but it's really different how you normally would use text editors. And of course you can also have multiple windows, tabs, and then there are also the registers, so everything you copy in Vim will be saved in the register. So you have 26 registers. So every time you copy, it moves down by 1, and you will have the last 26 things you copied in these registers. And this can be really handy if you use macros, then you can copy stuff like that. I mean, I use macros, but I never use them with registers. They are really a step further, but you can really do a lot of crazy stuff. And maybe a quick word also about Neovim itself. So it has native Lua support, because normally in Vim you can hack the editor and you can define how stuff works. And in Vim you use Vim script, that is a kind of own language the Vim developer created. And Neovim instead, you can also use Lua. Lua is a quite popular and quite simple scripting language, and that makes it much easier to do the configurations. And Neovim also supports LSP, so language server protocol. So you can use, if you use LSPs, you get like helps or auto-completion, or you can look up the documentation and stuff like that inside Neovim. So this is really handy. And the latest version also comes with a package manager, because it has a really vast and open, and really open, not like Visual Studio Code that has this strange ecosystem. But it is made by a community, and every plugin is made by a developer who uploads his code, so there is no central point of control. And there you can find a lot of things. So normally when you start with Neovim, then you go and search for the latest plugin or the next plugin you want to try, and end up with 50 plugins. And also went that road, but now I went back and have no plugins. I'm using plain Neovim, because plugins then can cause issues if you have too much, and you have to maintain, you have to update and stuff like that. So I really like how the default actually works. And then there are also distributions, so like LazyVim or others that also come already with some plugins installed. So it's like a Linux distribution where you don't have just the kernel, but also the desktop environment or LibreOffice, all the stuff installed. And with distributions, you get Neovim, but with some plugins already installed and configured. So I don't know, I don't like them much, because they really change the way how it works, and then you are using not Neovim but that distribution. So it's, especially for beginners, it's maybe not the best. And also here I wrote a blog post on how I switched from Visual Studio Code to Neovim. But now, yeah, let's see it in action. So, I mean, I also develop in Godot, so I just do that. I don't have to do much. Can you hear me? Okay, glad. So normally I would open Godot. then my latest project. And in Godot, you can use the internal editor or define an external one. You can also use whatever you want, but in this case, I'm using Neovim, and then I will go to the project directory. And now I have Neovim open. And so here, if I will open a file, instead of opening it here in Godot, it will open in Neovim. And here, then you can move around, like with, for example, now I can show you find capital E. It will go to the next, capital E. Or with Word, you go on with the next word. Then with DD, you delete a line. You can also select multiple lines, delete them, and then paste them. And the cool thing is that it is really hackable. So here already you see that the thing is centered, because if I would open this in Vim, wrong. So Vim normally moves the text on the most left, and I didn't really like that. I wanted it centered, so I wrote a tiny script with Lua that detects if I'm using only one window, it centers the current buffer. So already if I open 2, it detects that there are now 2 windows, and it will align the text to the most left. And I also coded some other things. For example, then if you want to find a file or like switch file, you can use the commands. So here on the top, maybe it's too small. So here you can, this is the command mode. So let me first explain. Normally you enter in normal mode. Here you can't write. Then by pressing E, you go in insert mode, and now you can write. And by pressing ESC, you go back to normal mode. And with U, you can undo the latest change you did. And by pressing, how it's called, Doppelpunkt, colon, you go in command mode, and there you can do a lot of commands. For example, find lets me find files, and now I search for, I don't know in which directory, so I press star, email collection it. So now I'm in the email collection, and I want to, let's open another window. Doesn't change. Anyway, so here in the game I have a lot of text, since it's a management game, and I'm using Weblate to translate these texts. And here, as you can see, I have, for example, greetings, and then the placeholder that will be replaced with the name of the player. And on Weblate, it will show up greetings and then this stuff. And here it's easy, but on some more complex text, it is really difficult to maybe understand the context or stuff like that. Then people ask me to add these comments. So here you can read on the top line, example, hello, and then the manager name replaced with the actual word that will be in the game. And this makes it easier for translators to understand how to translate. But since I was really lazy, I didn't want always to copy this text and go here, paste it, and I would have to write all the stuff. I wrote a script that does, I call the command go.example, and then, okay, manager name was not done, but it will create a comment to don't translate the placeholders, and then it should actually also translate the placeholders. It didn't work, maybe here. Yeah, here, as you can see, it took the text, and the keyword is already translated with the placeholder I normally use. So with a few keystrokes, I get this automated stuff. And by these tiny little things, you get a lot of faster and can automate things much easier. And then, of course, there are the macros. For example, no. Yeah, for example, here I have all the countries listed, and maybe now I want to add, I don't know, I have another, let's go to the countries actually. What could I add? Yeah, I don't know now, but by pressing double Q, you can register a macro. So for example, now I press double Q and everything I enter now will be registered by Vim, and then I can replay that macro. So for example, now I yank this line, paste it, then I find the next stuff, the next quotes. Then I change inside the quotes the text and write test. And then I go to the next nation by this and go down. And so now with at Q, you saw Egypt now also has this test. And now also Albania has the macro I just wrote. And then you can, of course, keep it pressed or just go to the end of the line to apply it to the whole file. And then you can combine all the motions, registers, and even macros inside macros. So you have endless ways to edit text here. And maybe to show also the LSP. So since here I'm using, so Godot basically is running a LSP server in the background. And so I can look up, for example, I can go here to nation and then with the, I don't know how it's called, I press a key and then I go to the source of this, of the implementation of the nation. Or I get also auto-completion. So if I will go here, so Neovim Vim always can do it inside their own file. So since I already wrote continent code here, it knows that already. But by pressing another key combination, I also get the methods and everything I can do on that. So this comes from the LSP. And this is really handy because it allows you to, you don't have to remember everything. And you can also maybe, for example, do some refactoring, so change the name of this method. So now here, I can change here the name or maybe see where it is referenced. So with GRR, okay, now it was a lot of references. So here then in the quick list, you can see all the references. And it is really, really a different way how to edit files and write code. And it is also a lot of, it can be really fun because then you type and you always learn new stuff. For example, I just have to go online and search something for Vim and then I learn something new. So it's always amazing. And you can also hack it as ever you want. If you don't like something, you can surely change it. And it is really an interesting thing. And I don't know how many of you use Vim daily. Okay, there are some. Okay, great. And yeah, I think you want to show maybe something because some other Vim users who want to show off their skills. Do you have some suggestions or? Yeah, sure. So, what do you want to see? Like,
For example, some GUI stuff, like if you do something in Godot that involves pointing and clicking.
yeah, I always have the mouse.
You always do this full screen, or?
I mean, it depends. You can change the layout. For example, here in Godot, I use the tabbed layout because when I start the game, it will open in full screen. So if I would use the normal thing, it will be like this. So it opens on the right side. Now there was a bug. But I can define in my Sway config file that if Godot is open, it automatically changes to this tab mode. So I don't have to do it manually. You can also configure that a lot. And here there are these different modes. So you can do it like this. Then, of course, you can also change the sizes or full screen. And then this tab mode. And there is also the stacked mode. And instead of tabs, they are like stack, but it doesn't change much. And yes, Sway is really minimalistic. So normally people use it on Arch Linux because you can get a running system quite fast without much configuration, and you don't have much dependencies you have to care about. So that can also be a reason to use it, but I mainly use it because it is fast. It allows me to use the keyboard as much as possible, and yeah. But I think we can go to the time for questions. So,
can you go a bit into detail on how you? Can you go into a bit into detail about how you're using workspaces? Like, how do you think about workspaces? How do you organize them? What, for example, if you think, oh, I want to open a browser window and look up some stuff, what's your thought process to getting to the browser window?
yeah, here the idea, I mean, most people follow, and I also follow, is that you have dedicated workspaces for dedicated stuff. For example, I always keep the browser on the first workspace, so I already know if I want to go to the browser, I go mod 1 and I'm on the browser. So I don't even have to think now or search with the mouse the browser, I just go there. Then on the second one, I always have my Neovim instance. On 3, I normally have Godot or the main GUI I'm using. Then on 4, normally I have 2 other terminals with just to use Git and to write the changelog. On 5, I keep the nodes. On 10, I keep KeePass. On 9, email. So, and then I have these 3 workspaces where I just open random things I normally don't use. So this is the idea, that you really have this mental map where you just already know instantly I go there and I will find the browser. So that is the idea behind it.
It seems you optimize all the writing code stuff and switching workspaces, having everything isolated, but since you're developing a game, I assume you have to sometimes like seeing multiple stuff at once, like, I don't know, sprite sheet editor for the sprites inside the game, as well as the game editor, and maybe also a script for to test whatever. So normally that's where having 2 or 3 monitor gets value. So how do you do it? Like, because I can't imagine developing a game with a single window at a time. So
I think it's just getting used to it. I mean, of course, a lot of things are inside Godot itself, so I can change everything here, like what is related to the GUI and stuff like that. And it's also hot reloading most of the time, so when I change it, I will see it also here. And if I really have to do stuff like you said, where I have to see the changes immediately in the game, I would use the split stuff. So
Yeah, for example, do you use, like for sprites, you use GIMP, I assume?
yeah, I don't have much sprites. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, it's not really a graphical game. It's a management game where we control the futsal team. So the sprites I drew, it was like many months ago, no, even years. So, and that site I don't do much. But if I would also have GIMP, I would simply have here on 5 or 6, I would have GIMP open, and then I switch back to Godot, because then it also has to import, and it's not instant, I think. Like if I would edit something in GIMP, I would first have to open Godot, and it imports the new asset, and then it will be loaded in the game, so I would have to restart anyway. But yeah, with these workspaces and this, that you have this map in your mind where the stuff is, it is really fast. So I never really miss the second monitor. It's just consuming energy for nothing.
Thank you.
Hi. Some question about the keyboard. So if I right understand, this keyboard has less key as normal, and you switch layouts. So each layout has some keys, so letters, number, and so on. But I see there is no letter on the key. How do you remember where is the position, or which layout are you currently using? Is it all with memory, or there is some feedback somewhere?
No, so the idea is that you really build a muscle memory to be able to write without seeing. So, and also since I changed a lot layout, if I would have blocked some keys, well, you can change the position of the keys, but the idea really is, my idea was that I really learn to touch type so that I can write without looking at the keyboard. And there anyway, I don't need to see the positions. And since I changed layers, I would have to have keycaps that show maybe multiple things, so custom keycaps. And yeah, the idea really is that you do everything in your mind. So, and this is the most difficult part, because especially if you change also layout and things like that, it can be really tricky to change it. I forgot to play the music. So I read online, it was just that, so here you have 2 microcontrollers. Wait, let me lift it so you can see it better. So here every part has this microcontroller, and here in this case every single key has attached to a pin of the microcontroller. And since the microcontroller had more pins than keys, the developer said, well, what should I do with the other ones? So he attached this buzzer to play music, just for fun. And yeah, this one has the microcontroller outside. Instead, this one has the microcontroller on the PCB soldered on, so it's just a small RP 2040, something like that. So this has also much more layers and much more memory, because here the differences between keyboard and keyboard can be really huge. For example, this one has 15 layers because it has more memory and stuff like that. But I have to say 5 are more than enough. And I plan to change it again, but for now I really like that I can use it without thinking too much. I have to connect it again. Yeah, it also plays a sound when you turn it on. And sometimes mistakenly I turn it on with my headphones. I don't hear that the music is playing and people are complaining. But it's really rare. I would have to disable this music mode, but it's too cool Easter egg to have it.
Have you experimented with other similar window managers, similar to Sway?
I mean, I used E3 for some time back in the years. E3 is like the original Sway, so E3 is the same but for X, so Sway is for Wayland, but it's completely the same, so I didn't really use others. I know there are some, but I think this is one of the most popular, and I don't know. You tried others, or no?
Not tiling ones.
Yeah.
Why would you use Wayland over X?
Yeah, this is a tricky question. I think it's just most distributions are switching from X to Wayland, supposedly more secure and better. I don't know. I'm not so low level into the Linux kernel and stuff like that, so I don't really know. I just saw that Wayland is the thing that is coming and running everywhere, and so I picked Sway. And there is no, I could also use E3 here with X, so there will be not much difference. So I think the configuration files are also intercompatible mostly, so you can use on both systems the same config file.
I think the scaling is, if you use Wayland, it's much more convenient. You can like scale your desktop like 2 times, and that's much more difficult in X.
Yeah, I can imagine that with the new monitors, with the 4K and stuff like that, Wayland is surely a better option. But I'm using always still full HD stuff at home, so for me it would not make much difference. But I guess Wayland will be the most supported one, or is already the more supported one on all operating systems.
You're missing a graphical program, like in general, because you said you use Tuna and Spider Explorer. Do you use it a lot?
I mean, Tuner is a graphical tool. Now, this is the lock screen. 5 minutes past. No, not this one. Here it is. So Tuner is a graphical tool. Just, I mean, I could also use the one from KDE or GNOME, but Tuner is really small. It has a small footprint on the operating system, and it's quite fast, and it does what I need. And most of the times I'm using the terminal to move files or stuff like that, but sometimes I like the old way of searching and picking with the mouse. So.
Me too. I use Tuner, but then I switched to Nemo. It's quite similar.
That's from the Cinnamon, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's just a bit more lightweight.
Okay. Yeah.
But like from the design, the same.
I have to check that out. I mean, here you really can pick the programs you want to use. And in this case, like Tuner and Nemo, they don't have much dependencies. For example, if I would install Dolphin, the one from KDE, I would install the whole KDE Qt libraries. And I mean, at the end, it doesn't change, but it's just a feeling of having less dependencies.
Have you ever been on Linux, or did you switch to Debian?
I mean, I used a lot of distributions and also tried Arch once, but it was just too much. I mean, it is really a nice experience to learn, like, because you really have to do everything. If you install Linux normally, you have this nice GUI that does partitioning, encryption, you just press next, put your name, and you're ready to go. Instead on Arch, you really have to use, how it's called, parted to create a partitioning and stuff like that. And so that kind of, I don't want to deal too much with the operating system.
So it's not about stability or
Yeah, I mean,
fewer updates. Maybe that was my reason to switch to Debian, because I kind of sucked every day a new kernel update and then
yeah, I mean, that is also my main reason.
update all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Because on Debian, I mean, I chose Debian because I used it also before with other desktop environments, but it is really stable, so I know that the operating system will work. If I upgrade, it will work. I may have not the bleeding edge software, but for example, Godot, I download it from the website, so I don't use the one in the package manager. Or Neovim, I even build it from source because the one on the Debian repositories is quite outdated. So the few things I really need, I get them how I want, but all the rest, I just want them stable, working, and without any thing to think about. But I guess if you use Arch, you will use mostly Sway because it really has this small footprint, so you would have less dependencies. So on Arch, it really matters, the amount of dependencies. That on Debian, it would also be fine to use something bigger, but yeah.
Neovim supports on LLM, so
Sure, I mean, the plugin ecosystem is really big, so there is surely something a plugin you can install and then maybe ask them questions or even say, refactor me this code, and maybe there is also official Copilot or thing like that. I don't know because I don't use much LLM at coding. But it exists. How good it works, I don't know.
Seems all questions have been answered. So,
And if somebody wants to try the keyboard, you can come here after, during the networking, so you can try.
okay. Thank you.
Wait. I forgot one thing. So maybe a year round ago, I presented my game here, and I was expecting that it was already released. It was not. So today it is released, and I promised Steam key on that date. So today I have them here. So if you want a Steam key for my game, it's a futsal management game. I have them here.
Okay. Thank you, Simon. Discussion time, we already had it, and we will have it more at the networking at the end. Now I switch to the upcoming events. So the next time will be more on topic security, cyber security. There will be, I hope to pronounce this correctly, Abdelram Hoji, works at SIAC and is a security expert there, and will explain how to develop web application secure by design. So topic security. We have still 4 dates free of this next Software Developer Thursday, starting from July. So if you have an idea or something you would like to share with the community, you can drop me an email at s.seppi@noibz.it, and I will be happy to find a date and insert the talk in the calendar. Then 14th of April, we will organize an event about the Open Data Hub. It will be a full day of hacking together with our software architect, where you will learn how to develop and how to consume data from the Open Data Hub. If you are interested, you can scan the QR code or go on the opendatahub.com website. Under the event section, you will find all the details and more explanation about what's the topic of the event. And 15th of May, there will be the Open Data Hub Day, a full day around the topic of data spaces, open data, and the Open Data Hub. The call for speaker has been closed on Monday, and we are now elaborating the talks, and in the coming weeks you will find on the website the program, but you can already register to the event if you are interested to the topic. So that's all from my side.